Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views and analysis. WIONews.com. World is one.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit
Hello and welcome to WION Live broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. First, let's take a look at this hour's headlines. Russia's new foreign policy strategy adopted by President Vladimir Putin identifies China and India as main allies on the world stage. U.S. President Joe Biden declines to comment on the indictment of his predecessor Donald Trump, who became the first former U.S. leader to face criminal charges. Philippine Army and U.S. Army soldiers took turns in operating truck-mounted rocket launchers, anti-tank weapons, and demonstrated squad live exercises in northern Philippines. More than 100 wildfires broke out in Spain's northern Asturias region. Authorities say most of them started on purpose by arsonists and others as temperatures soar to record highs. South African Paralympic champion Oscar Pistorius' application for parole has been denied. This comes a decade after he shot and killed his girlfriend. India's cricket carnival gets underway. In exactly an hour, defending champions Gujarat Titans go up against the Chennai Super Kings, with the master MS Dhoni up against his protege Hardik Pandya. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has been indicted. For now, the indictment itself remains sealed. Trump is expected to turn himself in to the authorities next week. The details of a surrender are reportedly still being worked out. We now explore what lies ahead for the embattled former U.S. president. Now that the former U.S. president is charged, the very first question is, will Donald Trump be publicly arrested? Trump posted on social media on March 18th that he would be arrested. That will probably not happen if he voluntarily turns himself in. Reports say that the former president is likely to surrender. He is expected to appear in court on Tuesday. Much of the formalities is in the hands of Secret Service. They will determine how things will unfold. Once a suspect who has been indicted is in police custody, the law enforcement process happens behind closed doors. This includes mugshots and fingerprinting. The process is identical to whether the person has been arrested or has surrendered. At the first court proceedings, a judge would determine whether Trump would need to pay bail or adhere to certain restrictions pending a trial, or whether he could be released with no bail or restrictions. That is personal reconnaissance. Now, coming to a very important question. Will the former president go to jail? It all depends on whether he is charged or not, what he's charged with, and of course, whether there is a conviction, and if so, what that conviction would be for. The Manhattan Attorney's Office is believed to be having been considering charges of falsifying business records in the commission of another crime, possibly a campaign finance violation. According to New York state law, that would be a low-level felony. It is nonetheless punishable by up to 4 years in prison, but charges can be downgraded. Sentencing varies from case to case. In general, it is unusual for a person with no criminal record to be sentenced to extensive jail time for a non-violent, low-level felony violation. So even if Trump is convicted of a felony, it does not necessarily mean that he would spend time in jail. Now, coming to the last question. Can former U.S. President Donald Trump run for president in 2024? While it has never been attempted by a candidate from a major party before, going by the books, Donald Trump is still allowed to run for president while under indictment, or even if he is convicted of a crime. The practical impact of a criminal case on Trump's candidacy could be mixed. For more on this, we have Adele Nazarian joining us live from Washington, D.C. She is a media fellow at the Gould Institute for International Strategy. Adele, welcome back to WION, and thank you so much for joining us. First of all, can you tell us what you make of this saga and this indictment of Donald Trump? You know, we were kind of blindsided, to say the least. While we did expect it, we didn't think that Alvin Bragg would go ahead with it. At the end of this week, at least.
Risk, as everyone knows, what Putin. One and only.
Okay, I think we had some audio issues. Adele, thank you so much for joining us on WION. My question was your thoughts on this indictment. I'm going to admit, I personally didn't think that we were going to see an indictment, although it was expected, at least not at the end of this week.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you again. Sorry for the connection there. I have to say I'm with you. This is unprecedented in U.S. history. Believe me, this is the first, and it likely won't be the last. And I have to just say that although an indictment is not a conviction, this sets a chilling effect throughout the judicial system and is going to cause America's enemies and allies alike to start putting into question the definition of what democracy actually is and what U.S. democracy is currently and what it's going to look like over the next year and into the future as this saga continues to unfold.
Right. And I think, it's important to really outline why this is such a political case. This was a case that not only Alvin Bragg's predecessors didn't want to touch because it was so flimsy, but also federal prosecutors said that there is really no there. And then here is someone like Alvin Bragg, a Democrat, who decided to just go ahead with it because apparently people in his own office were criticizing him for, basically he got bullied into really going ahead with this case. But it's anything but a slam dunk, considering the fact that it's going to be very long. A conviction, as you mentioned, is not something that is not likely, to say the least. And then, it's not going to set a good precedent. I mean, the other side might retaliate at the end of the day. So any benefit, what is going to come out of this? How do you think that Alvin Bragg thought this through?
I think there is a lot of, just to pull an old quote out here, you can indict a ham sandwich, right? And so, of course, while a conviction may not actually come to fruition, I think that there was a lot of thought put into this. I think that the whole notion of trying to present the January 6th attack on the Capitol Hill as being an insurrection was an attempt to invoke the 14th Amendment, which we're all familiar here with, which bars anyone who engage in insurrection or rebellion to aid the enemies of the U.S. to run for office. But of course, you have Republicans saying that was in no way, shape, or form an insurrection. You have Democrats saying that it absolutely was. And I believe what's going now is when there aren't enough chips in the table, so to speak, to continue with the plan that was initiated, it's going to go on to the next one. And now what we're seeing is a completely politicized division politically, Democrats, Republicans, leading up to this very, very intense 2024 presidential election. And I do believe that this is if we're going to talk about the partisanship here, the Democrats thought this would be a way to get Trump to step aside. Knowing his personality, having you and I both and anyone in the media world having seen his personality and his unwillingness to quote unquote back down, I believe this only empowers and invigorates Donald Trump even more. And what it's ended up going to do is further energize his base of absolute supporters, the MAGA crowd, if you'd like to call them that as well, and might even result in helping him actually in his reelection prospects. As you see, he's campaigning and he hasn't been fazed by, publicly at least, as to what's been thrown at him.
I think that maybe because of something like this being politicized and the fear that it puts into people that our justice system might be veering in the way of politicization, some Democrats may be on board as well and join that MAGA crowd. Not because it's Donald Trump, but because of the manner that this has been really taking place. And I just want to add that a conviction would almost certainly require the jury to credit someone like Michael Cohen, who has his own legal troubles. So, just talking about that a little bit, we talk about indictment on the one hand, but I think that our audience needs to also distinguish between indictment and conviction. And I think that there is really a long way to go And I think this is possibly going to be a very lengthy trial.
Absolutely. I just want to also point out that being convicted does not bar someone from running for office, right? It's very important to know that they didn't succeed in their attempts, of course, but two names that have been circulating in the media as of late are Eugene Debs and Lyndon LaRouche, both of whom were actually convicted. They were fringe candidates, of course, but they ended up running multiple times. And so there is nothing in the Constitution that bars or precludes anyone with a conviction who is a U.S. national, naturalized citizen and born in the U.S., of course, from running for office. But you're absolutely right that what this does do is set our justice system into a flurry. And I think you're correct. Michael Cohen also, not to go ahead and use this analogy so casually, but even a broken clock is right twice a day, so to speak. So in this case, even if someone has done some wrongdoing, it's very possible that something that they did regarding to Michael Cohen regarding the Donald Trump case, even with his own, misdemeanors or whatever he may have done, mistakes, he may actually be found that he did certain things the right way as it pertained to Trump. And I really am glad that you pointed out it may bring some people from across the aisle more to the center, the side of justice, to realize that despite whether or not you like or hate him as a person, what's happening to Donald Trump is truly an abomination in terms of the way a former president is being treated and the way the situation is being handled. And so I do hope that justice will prevail and that any judges or people on the legal side of things that are actually handling this case will be able to err on the side of justice the way it was intended and to put their own personal biases aside for the betterment of the people, for the country, and also by extension, the world.
Yeah, these things don't happen overnight. We've seen it happen in so many other countries, and it would just be so great if we at least saw one or two Democratic lawmakers stand up and at least say something. It would make so much of a difference. Adele, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for that insight. And I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Susan, likewise. Thank you so much.
It's a political bombshell. Donald Trump has been indicted, the first ever serving or former president to face criminal charges. So what happens next? Can he still run for the White House? What is this Stormy Daniels saga? I talked about this earlier as the news broke. Please take a listen for an encompassing overview of where things stand as the former Republican president faces more than 30 counts related to business fraud.
Unprecedented in the history of the United States of America. For the first time, a former president is facing criminal charges. A storm is brewing, shaking the very foundation of the world's oldest democracy. At the heart of it is Donald John Trump, the 45th president of the U.S. The story goes back to a stormy affair in July 2006. Trump, who was a reality television star, met a porn film star, Stormy Daniels, at a celebrity golf tournament in Lake Tahoe. The grand jury indictment follows months of hearing of evidence about an alleged payment of $130,000 to the actress in the waning days of the 2016 campaign. Trump has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. Trump's attorney at the time, Michael Cohen, allegedly made the payment to buy Daniels' silence. It is further stated that Trump was president when he reimbursed Cohen with monthly checks of $35,000 from his personal account. The case is once again widening the deep political chasm in American society.
It's a Democrats-run state, so what you can expect, it's a witch hunt.
This is the beginning of something that will really bring down a very, very bad person.
It's not going to stop here. We've got to continue fighting for Trump because they're going to continue going after Trump.
It was just a matter of time. You can only lie so much. At some point it will catch up with you.
Interestingly, the U.S. Constitution does not prohibit a convict from becoming the country's president, at least technically. Mind-boggling as it may sound, a convicted person can even function as president from inside the prison.
For Trump, the indictment could jeopardize his presidential prospects, but it might well be an opportunity to further rally his supporters. The legal tangle for the 76-year-old Republican leader is far from over. He is facing legal scrutiny for his role in the Capitol Hill insurrection, and also the mishandling of classified documents.
President Trump himself shortly after released his own lengthy statement, in part saying that the Democrats had done the unthinkable, indicting a completely innocent person in an act of blatant election interference. This case brought by Alvin Bragg, who is a Democrat, is anything but a sure bet. First of all, it will be a lengthy process, and second of all, there is no guarantees. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One. Time and again, Russia has been slammed for launching cyber attacks, for running disinformation campaigns, but there has not been much information of how these operations are conducted. But it seems we now have some detail about that thanks to the Vulcan files, a set of emails and other documents leaked by an anonymous whistleblower. What information do these 5,000 pages of leaked documents contain? Well, they reveal the insights into a Moscow-based contractor that builds tools for Russia's cyber warriors. The name is NTC Vulcan. It's a software and cybersecurity company that has commercial and government clients. One of Vulcan's clients appears to be Russia's most notorious hacking group. It's been dubbed sandworm by Western cybersecurity analysts. Thousands of pages of secret documents reveal how Vulcan's engineers have worked for Russian military and intelligence agencies to support hacking operations, train operatives before attacks on national infrastructures, spread disinformation, and control sections of the internet. In other words, Russian intelligence agencies have worked with a Moscow-based defense contractor to strengthen their ability to launch cyber attacks. The leaked documents list down a host of computer programs and databases that would allow Russia's intelligence agencies and hacking groups to find vulnerabilities and coordinate attacks. The findings are shocking as they offer a rare look into Russia's cyber ambitions. Wimbledon has reversed its stance on Russian and Belarusian athletes faced with the prospect of a ban from hosting events leading up to the only grass court Glam Slam. The Lawn Tennis Association has allowed the likes of Daniil Medvedev and Ariana Sabalenka to compete. Wimbledon was stripped of ranking points by both the ATP and WTA tours last year after it banned Russian and Belarusian tennis players from competing. That decision was backed by the British government, but went against the decision of the two tours, which had allowed players from both countries to compete as neutrals following the invasion of Ukraine. The tours threatened to cancel the membership of the Lawn Tennis Association if it exercised further discrimination based on nationality. That was a price the LTA was unwilling to pay, with the financial cost impacting funding of grassroots tennis in Great Britain. The All England Club, which runs Wimbledon, has continued to express support for the people of Ukraine and has introduced 2 riders. Players such as Medvedev, Andrei Rublev, Sabalenka, and Daria Kasatkina, who are all ranked inside the top 10 in singles in both tours, will have to sign neutrality decisions in order to compete. They must undertake not to support the regimes of their respective countries and not accept funding or sponsorship from the Russian and Belarusian governments or companies controlled by them. There is also an acceptance from Wimbledon organizations that their positions has not been consistent with the other 3 Grand Slams who have allowed players from both countries to compete.
Now, Russian and Belarusian tennis players will be able to compete in the UK's most prestigious tournaments this summer after the All England club lifted the ban it imposed last year. Now, the decision also covers British events held in the run-up to Wimbledon. Players had been banned in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the support provided by Belarus. And the All England club said that they do condemn Russia's invasion and stand by Ukraine, and that it was a difficult decision. But they'd been in talks with the UK government and the Lawn Tennis Association. But players and their support staff will have to sign neutrality declarations in order to compete and not receive funding from Russian and or Belarusian states, including sponsorship from companies operated or controlled by them. And punishments for breaking these declarations will range from fines to expulsion from the tournament. Now, the lifting of the ban will ensure that top players will be back on the green this summer. This is Alex Isaac reporting from London for WION. World is One.
That's all from us here in New York City. Thank you so much for staying with us and watching. I'm Susan Tehrani, wishing you a lovely weekend. Don't go away. More news and headlines are coming up next, only on WION. World is One.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days,